Hey everyone, let's give a review to Need for Speed Most Wanted. I'll be checking its music, graphics, gameplay and story. Let's begin with its story. Its main plot is that the player arrived at Rockport with a custom BMW M3 GTR. While racing on the streets, you know Mia. After a while a Corvette blocks your way and Mia escapes. This vehicle is being driven by Sergeant Cross, with whom you end up having an interesting conversation. Cross is about to detain the player, but in the background there is a radio saying that there is a race going on, leaving you free for the time being. After a couple of days the player gets to know Ronnie on the streets, and you beat the crap out of Ronnie. Soon after you get to know your nemesis, Razor, who agrees to race with you. Before racing against Razor, there is another race against Rogue, which you also end up beating the heck out of him. After that, he tells you,
"I like your style. Just make sure you watch your back with these guys, alright? See you around."
Right after running with Rogue, you are intercepted by Razor in a Mustang. In the race against Razor, the player will receive a call from Mia saying that the M3 GTR from our character is leaking oil. However, it is a bit too late because our vehicle breaks down and we end up giving the vehicle to Razor. The RPD soon arrives at the scene and arrests the player, but due to the lack of evidence, they let him free.
Guess it's hard to nail you for street racing when you don't know how to ride.
After the events, Mia and Rogue help the player to get his vendetta against Razor. Mia explains the player that in order to run once against him, you need to beat the blacklist. That's where the real crusade begins. In my humble opinion, revenge is always a good motivator.
Bus stops that way, champ.
Which makes a good plot. In this specific case, I would like to talk a bit about its voice acting. Sometimes they feel a bit forced, like wanting to talk like a real cholo.
Keep your mouth shut and listen up. These are my streets, you got that? You just bow out when you're told and everything will be cool.
Don't get too excited, punk. You still ain't rolling my streets.
Yeah, it's Ronnie. Look, I don't care what they say about you. I'm gonna wipe you all over the road. We'll see how easy it is when you run against me. I'm ready when you are, punk.
But this may be on me. However, it is a 9. For its gameplay, it's definitely one of the best. The issue with some racing video games is that there is a lack in mobility, or in this case steering, making them sometimes a bit boring, because if in a racing video game you are not allowed to go fast, it starts to suck. Such was the fate for the later entries in the franchise. However, in Most Wanted the mobility is second to none. Either way, there is a little issue sometimes with the streets, corners or certain places where they may not be well made. So you could end up crashing against the air, which sometimes is a bit frustrating while escaping from the police or while racing. Its AI is one of the funniest because there are times where it runs against another vehicle or walls, giving you some crazy advantages. Or the police, for example. There are places in the map where it is really easy to escape or let the pursuit continue for ages. This basically comes in handy while doing some challenges. On this end, there are basically two versions of the game, 1.2, which is the standard, and 1.3, Black Edition, which in my understanding the only difference is one challenge where you are able to drive against the RPD level 7, some extra vehicles, and the Black Edition has a much more aggressive RPD, but that can play real hard against them, where if we compare the 1.2 edition doing the same challenge, there are 19 immobilized units, but in 1.3 edition has 29. I consider its gameplay still holding up to this day. It is a 9. Depending on the console, there are basically two kinds of graphics. The PS2 has some ugly graphics if we compare them with the GameCube version. The game looks much more pixelated, but its mirror looks good, compared with the GameCube version. Here we have to compromise a bit. In the GameCube version I believe it looks much better, but if you want a much more realistic representation of the environment, the PS2 version is way better. There is rain, dust, the trees have some slight movement. Other than that, well, it's a bit a while since Most Wanted was released. Back in the day I remember saying, dude, it looks beautiful, but now I will say they are barely holding. Due to the lack of pixels, sometimes it is a bit complicated seeing the vehicles ahead, causing some instantaneous crashes. In my opinion, this happens much more if you have the bumper view. The graphics of this game while racing are the ones I consider the most, because this is a racing game. Watching the vehicle in the garage, well, honestly, I think they look pretty good, but that is not the main dish. So, back in the day, I will say they were a 9, but nowadays they are an 8. And last but not least, it's music. This one tackles many genres: rap rock, rap, electronic, hardstep, rock, metal, industrial. Really good 2000 tracks that honestly I still listen up to this day because they immerse you in the spirit of racing. And the cool thing is that you can pretty much make your playlist to listen whatever you want. Perhaps if we compare the amount of music the game has with today's game, the difference in some cases is abysmal. And in some racing games you are able to load your own music, but if I want to objectively review this game, that would be a bit unfair, because also depending from person to person, this is like a rabbit hole. In my humble opinion, it's another 8. Summarizing Need for Speed Most Wanted, its score is 8.5. Definitely still worth it to play nowadays. Most Wanted is considered to be the best Need for Speed, where there is a 2012 version for those interested in this game. It also was released in several consoles. Just avoid the freaking DS version. Just imagine it never exists. The other versions are a lot of fun. Nowadays you can find it from around $30 up to 200. Talk about a beloved game. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
On my call, move into position.